I'll just start by saying that the GMAT exam has actually undergone a name change on July 1st, 2024. And this means now that the older versions of the GMAT exam will be called 10th edition. The GMAT exam 10th edition, that's how the old GMAT exam will be referred to. And the new GMAT, which we were earlier calling the GMAT exam Focus Edition, will just be the GMAT exam. So going forward now, the new Focus Edition will be referred to only as the GMAT exam, but the old one will be referred to as 10th edition. So that is one clarification I wanted to make. In terms of what is really changed between the old GMAT and the new GMAT, well, the first part of the good news for candidates is that the new GMAT exam is shorter. From 3 hours is down to about 2 hours. And it's a more efficient, flexible test. There are new features that we've introduced. For example, there is a review and edit response feature. There is score sending flexibility that is improved. There is selecting section order that has been introduced. And we've tried to make the overall experience better for candidates. To answer your question on why did we do this? Well, the main reason is we conduct research continuously with both corporate employers who eventually recruit candidates from these schools. And we also keep talking to the schools themselves to understand how is the curriculum changing, what are the changes that they are seeing as far as candidates are concerned, what are the skills that they wish to identify. And I would say that the new GMAT exam has been introduced to address the evolving needs of both business education and the professional landscape. Our goal was basically to provide today's diverse candidates with a testing experience that accurately reflects their readiness for the academic rigor of business programs. How did we go about doing this? So a very thorough study was done across hundreds of candidates as well as corporate recruiters. There was extensive engagement with industry professionals. We identified skills such as critical thinking, data analysis, problem solving, and these, we understand, are increasingly vital for success in both academic as well as professional settings. And the new GMAT, I would say, is designed to address these very skills and to ensure that candidates are better prepared for the demands of modern business education and the challenges that today's business environment really throws up. So I'd say this is to basically explain why we made the changes and, we got the new format of the new GMAT exam. With the introduction of AI and the way there are rapid technological advances happening, we have figured out that, candidates need to manage newer challenges at the workplace. And keeping that in mind, I would say the exam has been designed according to, those requirements and the changes, the evolving changes at the workplace. And it is also to give enough confidence to the schools that are really training these candidates that when they go out and they're interviewed by recruiters, when they go and take up managerial positions at the workplace, they're able to manage these challenges. What is very important is when a school is making a selection, you have to make sure that it is a fair, unbiased manner in which the selection is taking place. And what better way to do that than to have a standardized test that actually tells the schools that this is the difference between, the candidates who are sitting in front of them and they're testing them for these very skills. That gives the school the confidence that we've got the right candidate in the classroom. And then that candidate becomes the ambassador for the school when they go to the workplace. So I would say that firstly, the GMAT exam is a very important part of the application itself. And it is given a lot of emphasis and importance by B schools because the reason why the GMAT was evolved in the first place more than 70 years ago was because schools required an unbiased manner of making a selection. And a standardized test is the only way to be completely unbiased, where it doesn't matter whether the candidate is a female or a male, what is their nationality or ethnicity. what is their background, whether they come from an English-speaking background or a non-English-speaking background. So a standardized, unbiased test is required, and that is exactly what the GMAT exam is. So it forms a very important part of the application process. Schools give a lot of importance to the GMAT exam because that is how they do the initial filtering. So what happens is good schools, not just hundreds, they get thousands of applications. How do they make a selection? So the GMAT exam is the first and most important filter that a school uses to actually shortlist candidates. And the other thing that is important for candidates to understand is that the GMAT exam is an exam that was designed by business schools for business schools. So even at the advent of the GMAT exam 70 years back when we were designing the test, and as we keep making changes as we made most recently, we always consult business schools. In fact, there are a lot of other tests in the market. Some schools might be using other tests as well, but those tests cater to a lot of different programs and different streams. Whereas the GMAT is only and only meant for graduate management programs. I think that depends on school to school. Every school has got a different criteria of what kind of weightage they give. Let's first talk a little bit about the domestic market, which is India, and then we can talk about how international schools work. So in India, since we work very closely with the schools and we understand their selection process, a lot of importance and weightage is given to the GMAT exam score. So my advice to candidates would be that take it very seriously. And when they start prepping for the exam, a lot of candidates tend to make the mistake that they first start with preparing the application process, shortlisting schools, programs, and then later in the journey, they realize that they have to appear for the GMAT exam, and that's when they start prepping for the GMAT. I would say it's the reverse, actually. What you should do is, if you already know that you want to get into a management program, want to go in for an MBA or a master's program or a PGDM program, start your GMAT preparation very early in the journey. If you're an undergraduate, you're in a better place to prepare because you're already in a study mode, you're already studying in some institution, and you have time in your hands. But if you're a working professional, it's much tougher, I understand, because then you need to take time out every day. You need to take time out during the weekends and start prepping for the exam. But give yourself at least 3 months or more to prepare for the exam. Pace yourself well. Because in India, schools are going to give a lot of importance to your score. And that is one of the main criteria for selection. As I said, applications are in thousands, right? So amongst these thousands of applications, how do they shortlist to, let's say, 200 or 150, who they will call for the next round for the GD and the interview? So when they have to shortlist for the GD and interview, they do that basis your GMAT score. If you're talking about international schools, the application process works very differently. Firstly, they have applications around the year. It's not like Indian schools where the applications are mostly around, December or January, and it's usually once or twice in a year. International schools have it around the calendar. And there, again, a lot of importance is given to the GMAT. However, the GMAT is one important part of the overall application. There are a lot of other things that are also involved in the application process. But my advice to candidates would be, whatever school, program, or stream you're planning to specialize in, please go to that respective school's website. Most schools very transparently share what is the weightage for the GMAT exam. And in fact, a number of schools have also started sharing what is the score cutoff. And just so that there's no confusion in the minds of candidates, they might be wondering that there was the 10th edition GMAT, which we can refer to as the older version, and there is the present GMAT, which is the new GMAT. So how do we really differentiate? Well, there's a concordance table that is there on our website. Please have a look at that. You can compare the scores between the older GMAT version, the 10th edition, and the present GMAT exam to know how the scores compare. And schools use the same concordance table to compare scores. So I'd like to inform candidates that the GMAT exam is extremely popular also amongst Indian B schools. Most candidates tend to think of the GMAT for studying abroad, but that's not true. We have leading business schools in India that use the GMAT. Schools like ISB, SPJIMR, the IIMs for the executive MBA, they use the GMAT extensively. And AICTE, which is the Indian regulator, allows Indian candidates to write the GMAT to apply to all PGDM schools. So all leading PGDM schools in India also accept the GMAT exam. It's amongst the 6 ratified tests. So my suggestion advice would be, while there are other Indian assessments as well, the one advantage that GMAT offers you is that you can repeat the test within a period of after 15 days. So you don't have to wait for an entire year. Often when you write an Indian assessment, what happens is if you do badly, you have to reappear after 1 year. But in the GMAT, the advantage you have is that if you don't do well in the Indian assessment, you can easily apply and write the GMAT and apply to the GMAT score. If you're not happy, you can repeat the GMAT exam after 15 days. In fact, you can take up to 5 attempts within 1 calendar year. So it's an exam that's very candidate friendly, and you can end up not wasting an entire year if you don't do well. So that is an important piece of information I wanted to share, that the GMAT is not only for studying abroad, but also for studying within India.